See, this is oh, I didn't even remember this hand. Alright. Alright, so this is a really strange hand. Because this guy just got coolered pretty much. I don't know how much of a cooler it is when you're as many big blinds deep as we are. I think maybe it's possible to fold ace king there, but maybe not. So basically he got coolered, and now we open with ace king suited, and he shoves in his whole stack, which is a lot of chips. Sorry about that. My fiance just got home and the dog started going nuts, so I had to pause the video. But anyways, back to this hand. Seems like a really big gamble to just go ahead and call here. I don't know, maybe he's on some like ridiculous tilt from losing the last hand, but he didn't lose that many chips, so I don't really know what he's shoving all in with here, but we basically just have ace king, and I think I'd really need to have kings or aces to call here. I might even fold queens because it's just such a big gamble. I know that in this tournament I have a pretty good edge over most of the players at the table, especially since I already have a pretty good stack developed here. So I think that, though I do have a pretty big hand here, that I'm just going to go ahead and fold, because if he has a pair like jacks or queens or whatever, then it's a race at best. I guess he could be shoving kings or aces, and maybe he's never doing that. Who knows with these random players, though? It's really hard to know what they're doing sometimes. But the fact of the matter is I only have 240 chips invested in the pot, and I would have to call a whole nother 5,700, probably leaving myself around 3,000 chips, and it's just kind of a gamble at this point, so I just opt to fold. Call me a nit, if you will, but I just think that at this point there's just no point in really gambling like that. So I fold. And it turns out to be a pretty good idea because it works out for me in the long run in this tournament. I have to say. Who knows what would have happened if I did call there. Maybe, like I said, he's on some crazy tilt after that hand. Go ahead and defend my big blind here with ace 10. And I'm going to go back to that hand, actually. I wouldn't really defend my big blind here if I had less chips, if we both had less chips, but we both have a pretty reasonable amount of chips here. He's got like 60 big blinds. I have 80, and I've already seen that from how he's been playing that maybe he's not the most competent player. So anyways, I flop top pair. He bets like half the pot, and I'm going to go ahead and raise here. The reason I raise is because I have a good hand, obviously. I have top pair, top kicker. But also there's a lot of draws on this board, and I'm going to be playing the rest of the pot out of position, so God knows what's going to come out on the turn in the river, and it'll make the hand a lot harder to play if I continue seeing the rest of the cards. There's just all kinds of ridiculous things that could happen. So I just try to make it a little bit easier for me to play this hand. We do have a lot of chips, so I'm not really looking to lose all my chips or like end up losing a decent amount of chips when the turn and river come out some ridiculous combo that just ends up making him some hand that I wouldn't even think he'd ever have. But anyways, this flop is really drawy, and I mean, I just think the best way to really counteract the kind of aggression that I could be seeing later on, where he could make my life really difficult trying to call down the rest of the hand with top pair when all kinds of other cards come out. It could be really hard. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if he has a hand here. If he plays back at me, I'm going to fold. But so that's what I do, and it works out. We take down the pot. It's not a move that I make that often, to be honest. but we have a pretty reasonable amount of chips. So I just elected to make it that time. Just defend here with the ace-jack suited. Not a play I make all the time as well. A lot of the time I'll just fold ace-jack there, but I wanted to play a few more pots in this tournament. Seemed like everything was going pretty well for me so far, so I just opted to see that flop and can check fold when you see something gross like that. See, now that is really weird. Post Pete check shoves his entire stack in here with pretty much just a flush draw. If he gets called, he's pretty much just has a flush draw. The ace high is never gonna, pairing the ace is never gonna actually give him the best hand, I don't think, in this situation. So he gets called by the player that has the nuts, but I'm assuming he makes a, oh yeah, there it is. He makes the flush on the river. I assumed he did because he made the final table. But that's not a play that I would make. It's a lot. It's basically just gambling. Like, there's no skill involved when you go all in for that many chips. I mean, that was like 60 big blinds on that kind of flop. It's just kind of mind-blowing. But it worked out for him. Get the ace-king and open the pot. Take down the blinds. I'll take it. So just seeing that move from Postal Pete, though, kind of helps me out later on in the tournament to know what kind of player he is. And I definitely take advantage of it a little bit later on. So don't be surprised when he does some crazy stuff later on, though, because you already saw him do something pretty off the wall. But at least he had some outs. Not too excited about having this player breathe on my left, otherwise known as Twirl Pro. Pretty easy fold here. It's a really drawy board, and I just have king high. And when somebody calls from the blinds and leads out into a pot, when it's a pretty good player, I just kind of give them credit for a hand a lot of the time. A lot of the good players know that they don't get much credit for leading out into pots like that. It's called a donk bet because it used to be only that donkeys would make that kind of play where they'd lead out or raise or call from out of position and then lead into the raiser. But when regulars do it, they usually have a pretty good hand, and they're kind of like trapping in a way because they kind of expect that they're going to get raised. A lot of the times, if just a random player would make that kind of play in a heads-up pot where they lead out into me, I would just raise them a lot of the times because they would do that. Like, it used to be that they would do it all the time with like airs to try to take down the pot and take away the fact that I would have position in the hand. But I think some of the regulars have caught on to the fact, and they're trying to use that kind of play as a way of getting value for their really big hands, like sets and two pair and stuff like that, and big draws as well. So I rock hose. Good game, sir.